I think the thing that we're learning is many things, but I think in this recent situation with just using COVID, it's it's challenging to be able to find the truth and to make that decision. I think that's the thing. Um, and all the fear that's in it. So those are things we have to work through. Um, but it is difficult to find the truth in the situation often. Um, I don't know what heaven would say about that, how much truth we're really getting from the science. And they were under tremendous pressure, doctors. Some made a choice to tell what they felt was involved and to not take the vaccine, and they lost their license. So that was a choice. But it is difficult in this day and age. I believe it's hard to find the truth. There's so much misinformation.
Well, can you trust your heart? For instance, in the situation you were in, Jim, you had many choices, didn't you? You had a choice to write to all of the Congress people and say to them, I think that you need to change this law. Or you could have even picketed the businesses that were requiring vaccinations, right? Those were choices, right?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
However, you limited your choices because you said, it's not my problem, it's the government that's doing this, right? It's all the government's problem. And yet, when we do that, we relinquish control of our world, you see. Even the countries that have dictators do not limit your choice to stand up and say, I won't play that way. I won't wear that burqa. And if you club me to death because I won't wear a burqa, at least I exercised my choice according to my heart, and you couldn't control me, could you?
That's true.
And so when you look up that information and you give it your best bet, you just say, well, I'm doing my best, God, to make the choice that feels right to me, and I'll take the consequences, whatever they are, right?
That's very good. Thank you.
The problem is when we start blaming others, when we start feeling victimized, we narrow the point of view. We talk about the bay window, and we say when your window is clear, when your windshield is clear, you get a clear view of the countryside and the road in front of you. When you have so much crap on your windshield that you can't see through it, maybe you rub away a little hole, that's the hole that you look through. And you're missing a lot of options, you see, a lot of opportunities to make other choices, right? And if you only look in the rear view mirror, you're just looking at the past and you're not seeing the road in front of you. Is this making sense to all of you?
Yes.
Paige, did this answer the question for you?
Yes, I'm good. Yeah.
That's when you are in the community, you can present the question and you can say, what do the rest of you think? And you can assess the situation from all these different points of view. Because already here today, we heard different points of view on vaccination, didn't we?
Right.
And so when everybody can be heard, then you have more information about how the group might handle a situation, and you might get some ideas from other people that might help you to make a good decision, right?
Right.
So as long as you keep the windshield clear, so that you get a good view of the countryside and you see somebody standing there, you can say, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about vaccination? And especially in these circumstances, because circumstances can differ. The circumstances Stephanie was in were very different than the circumstances Jim's kids were in, right?
Right.
And so the decision for one might not be the decision for all. However, when you play victim and you have to find a villain, then you want the villain to be the villain for everybody. But it's not that way in reality.
And there's different vaccines with different situations because you got your little common, flu vaccine compared to the measles stuff and things like that. There's lots of things to look at. I totally like the idea of looking at everybody's points of view from around that tree, all those leaves, all those different views of the leaves or the pieces and all that stuff. I like that.
When I was a child, it was considered pretty normal to get measles in various lifetimes. And Steph, you went through the measles phase, didn't you, with your family? Yes, I did. And we all got measles. We all survived it.
We got the chicken pox, so
Yep, chicken pox too.
they give the vaccine for the chicken pox now.
So when you say to somebody, well, so and so got measles and they died, or they were permanently injured, they were blind after that, the question may not be related to everybody else. It might be related to their particular situation, right?
Right.
What did they need to learn? What did they need to receive? What had they asked God for? What did they decide before they came into this world? What was their prior history? What was their history in this life that caused them to make that decision so they could get a different point of view, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea that you can make a decision for everybody in the USA is kind of ignorant, but that's what the government has to do. They have to make some decisions that will apply to everybody. And if they overstep their bounds because they make it so rigid that you have little control, or they understep their bounds because they let things become dangerous for various segments of the population, they have to balance all those considerations. The question you have to ask yourself is, what does it matter to me? How do I play? How do I play in this game? Maybe if I don't like the way they play, I'll run for being a senator or a representative in the US Congress, and I'll show them all how to do it right, right? Any thoughts on that?
For me, it's the energy of greed. And I think it's the same thing that's been existing for 300,000 years is greed. Big pharma to me it's greed. It's money.
Right.
It's
So
not about,
what was your greed in the situation? Because if it's about greed, it's about your greed. So
well,
where was the greed in your assessment here?
that's just a point of view, I guess. I don't feel where I have any greed because I just took myself out of it. I've been labeled anti-vaxxer since 2007.
Right. So was it agreed to find a villain, to find people to blame for the shame that you or others felt deep inside because they have a superior position in life where they can decide things that you can't decide? They can decide how to create a vaccine to help the people, or they can decide how to create a vaccine to get rich, or they can decide how to create a vaccine because they just love being creative, you see.
Yeah, no, I don't, none of that really mattered to me because it was only about what I felt about it. And what I felt
But
about it was
you said
natural
you,
beauty
right,
can't
but
be
you
beat
said,
by artificial.
right, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you said that to you is all about the greed of big pharma, essentially.
Yeah, there's a lot of greed for corporations. Big pharma is one of them.
Well, you can't experience greed unless the greed is inside of you. You're greedy for an explanation for the way things are not working out for you. What does it matter what others do? What does it matter that the people in big pharma choose to do it a certain way? What does it matter if other people choose to try to be the golden idol today or just want to make a buck? Because they're tired of being poor, you see. They're just so damn tired of being the ones that were in your position. It said, all those rich people are greedy. All those people, corporations and etc., they're just there because they're greedy. I want to be in their position so I can be the one who makes the decisions. So if you were in the position of the people who were working on the vaccine, would you say, I'm not going to do this today because I don't want to be part of a greedy corporation? And you were the one that had all the knowledge to work on it, you see. What would you do?
Well, I still believe that natural immunity can't be beat by artificial.
But what does that have to do with a greedy corporation?
I'm just saying that, all right, the Anunnaki had the idea of raping the planet for resources. That was the energy of greed, right? So it's been existent through humanity. It's greed. How do you reach the peace and harmony of one's willing to give if there's always somebody wanting to take more? You know, is it making sense?
Yeah, by giving up the belief that people are greedy. Because if people are greedy, you are a person. You are a part of the human race. If this greed is endemic to the human race, it is endemic to you. It is part of you. You wouldn't even know what it is if you were a baby of 2, would you?
No.
So, how did you get programmed to believe that humanity was naturally greedy or that corporations were greedy? Who programmed you?
Life experiences,
Well,
different agencies.
if you did not talk to another person or read anything, would you have been programmed to believe that just by looking at nature and your world around you?
No.
Okay, so who programmed you?
People from my childhood.
Say again.
People from my childhood.
Who can unprogram you?
God, myself.
That's right. And when you cease to see greed all around you, when all you see is the beauty of God's gifts to you, then you will have become a light in the forest, you see. But as long as you tell other people that the corporations are greedy, you're helping to program them to trust on that, you see? And when you
That's right.
trust that others are the greedy ones and through their greed they are harming others, then you trust that this is the way it works, that this is the way it works. Are you following this?
Ma'am. Thank you.
So all you have to say is, hey, there are people who are involved in corporations and they may have lots of different motives. Because what if somebody had a way to stop cancer? And they said, well, I have this formula, but I can't do anything with it because it's going to take a lot of money to develop it and market it so people know it's there and sell it to them because we have to charge for it. Because otherwise, how do we pay the expenses and how do we pay for my time? I'm the one who came up with this formula and I've worked my entire life on it for nothing. Been living in a camper while I've been developing this formula. Don't you think I should get paid?
I do. I mean, I do think they have cures. I think that there are cures available. I think there's things in nature that treat, and you can't say the word cure, but yeah, I do feel it's there.
So for our guy who came up with a formula, you would just say, well, no problem there because you just wasted all those years on something that we could just get by going and taking a little bark off a tree. So tough luck, guy, and he'll go away, right?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily that, but no, he deserved to get paid for his effort, for his time, for the invaluable service to humanity. Absolutely, absolutely.
Who gets to decide if he deserves that or not?
God says that. I mean,
That's right. What we're trying to tell you, Christal, is hands off.
right,
Hands
right,
off judging others, condemning others, thinking you know the motivation, thinking you know the story, thinking you know why God did it.
right.
So, if it weren't for the Anunnaki, humanity would not be here today and we would not be having this conversation, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, when God does say, hey, I got the Anunnaki to play my way and create humanity, do we know the whole story when we say the Anunnaki were the bad guys who enslaved humanity and created this idea of greed? This is why we say the only answer to all these questions is I love you today. Thank you, God. I love you. I love the world. And I'm not smart enough to run it. So I'll leave it to you.
Amen.
I'm not smart enough to figure it out. But all the ones who sit in their armchairs and say, well, where I'm the God today, I got to decide which people to condemn, which ones are greedy, which ones are deserving, which ones are shirking their duty, which ones are trying to control all of us. Then there's as many people, we could say there's as many gods of the universe trying to control it as there are those people who think that's their job, you see, right? Other thoughts, feedback on this issue?
I got something.
Yeah.
So I know God has been telling me a lot that, like you said, it's none of my business. Angela, it's not your job. Stop taking things like empathy and making it yours when it's supposed to be mine. Um, if anybody should have an ego, it should be God. It's not for us. And as I was laying in bed last night and I was having this awful leg pain, I mean, and I went to Google as I do often and be like, okay, what's the spiritual meaning of leg pain? What does this mean, God? And then it says on there, to let go of ego and let go of it was something else. I don't have the memory for it, but I know. And I immediately said, God, I'm going to let that go. And that pain just, is it dissipated? It was like more than gone. It was like it never existed. And it's like the connection that we actually can have with our bodies and with our mind, it's not to be explained. It's not to be understood. We just have to accept it, achieve it, believe it, and knowing that the beauty sometimes don't have no words to put to it. It's just, it's just like looking outside and seeing a tree and going, wow, that's beautiful. Or the river or the, whatever. But you don't fully have to understand everything about it. You just accept it. And my biggest thing is accepting that I was always a person full of control. And he says, you have no rights. You have no rights to control. You have no rights to empathy. You have no rights to the ego. And the hardest part was me learning to love myself and still learning to love myself. And that's our only requirement, is to love ourselves. And for those that's never received it, that's a really hard task. So that's kind of what I've been learning, is it's just none of your business. It's not for you to carry on. And if we would all work on ourselves and the pain that we're feeling in different parts of our body and try to understand where that's coming from, because it's a message, like my loss of voice is fear of getting in another car accident, dealing with this TBI that I have, and in learning how to let that go, then I'll get my voice back. Because some days I don't have it, some days I do. So it's like I'm trying to let go of that control and knowing my place, knowing my lane, so to speak, when it comes to God, and respecting the authority of Him.
Very good. God is here, and He will let you know that He's very glad you have joined us here, because everybody should hear what you have to say. Because you, Angela, are an angel on earth. And you are here to help others to hear the message that you have to spread. Because you went through hell and high water to get here, didn't you?
Yes.
In other words, you went through hell and high water to get to the point where you could hear God
Yes.
say to you, I love you. Give it up. Give it up. Give up trying to be me. You are not the God of the universe. I am the God of the universe.
Yes.
And I have a connection to every one of my children. And I will guide every one of my children if they turn to me and don't turn their back on me. I will show them the way. And all they have to say is, I love you, God. And I will say, I love you. And therefore, I will do everything in my power, which is considerable, to help you see that love is the ultimate reality. All you have to do is love me and love yourself, you see, and the rest will come naturally. The rest will come naturally.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Spur, any other thoughts or reflections on this?
I do have a thought or a question, actually. So as a healthcare provider, when someone comes to me with their condition, say after a traumatic event, and I try to use my book knowledge to intervene for them, where do I stop and allow them to go through their process?
Winnie, it is your trust on your heart to guide you. So if your heart says, well, there might be something in this book that will help me, then look at it like the boat for the drowning man. That says just because it's a boat doesn't mean it won't float. And just because it's a book doesn't mean it doesn't have a hook that might help me to pull this person out of their dark energy. You see? So you have to trust on yourself to find the way, and you have to share with others, as we're doing today. We have to share our points of view so each of us can grow through the trust on being part of the synergy of the energy of reality. Because when we turn our backs on God, we turn our backs on reality, because God is a reality. But reality is the trust that God is there for you, that God will give you food to eat, He'll give you a book when you need it, He'll give you a boat when you need it to save you from drowning. And if you turn your back on God and say, I'm not going to get in that boat today because you have to play my way, you have to pluck me up out of the sea and take me to heaven, then God will say, okay, that's the way you want it, honey. So play as you already do in communion with God, you see, because God has it in hand, and that means God has you in hand. He will not drop your hand unless you swat it away. Did Winnie, do you have the question from Amy? Where is that? In the chats? And I have to look at the chat. I can maybe read it here. She asks, and she got dropped somehow, but she asked, she wanted to know about consequences. A prisoner who has formed a new point of view on murder. Consequences realized in this lifetime or always through reincarnation. In other words, I'm not sure what she's asking, but let's turn it over to the God or whoever wants to take it. God says, I'm here, Stephanie, and I hear what you say, and what she did right is very important for people to understand. God is not punitive. God is not here to punish you for the murder you committed or anything else. God is not here to send you to hell. God is here to love you and to help you. And do not forget the story of the prodigal son, please. That once you get a new point of view and you say, hey, I figured it out, God. I figured it out. You don't have to keep staying in the same old stuff. You just climb out of it, you see. You say, here I am in this room with all the others who complain about this or that. Maybe the topic is vaccinations, or it could be abortion, or it could be anything else that's on the agenda for today. And people say, I got to stay in this room, you see, and I have to defend myself against the ones who don't think like me. And we got to get out our bats and bat each other over the head and say, hey, we got to kill you today because you don't think like us. And then one day you wake up and you say, well, that's stupid. I don't want to play that way anymore. So, God, can you help me get out of this room? And I will hear you. And I will say, just turn to me, my child. Love me, and I will love you. And I will help you to climb out of that stew. I will help you to find the key to open the door to get out of that room. You see? And so little by little, when you begin to trust on me, I began to trust on you. I began to trust that you will do what I ask you to. And you will come home to me. You don't have to go out of your body to come home to God. All you have to say is, God, I figured it out. I don't need to stay in this room anymore because I figured it out. And I'm never going to win this issue. I'm never going to win the issue of who's right and who's wrong about vaccinations or abortion or whatever other issues there are on the table. I'm not smart enough because I'm not the one that controls the strings. I'm not the one that controls the strings that you control on every one of us. I'm only the one that gets to work with you, God, and say, I get it today. What do you want me to do? And maybe God will say to you, well, I want you to spend a few more years in prison, dear, so you can learn to hear my voice more clearly. When I say to you, hey, it's okay, because if you love me and I love you, then prison is just an experience. And maybe you can start talking to the other prisoners and say, hey, I figured it out today. I figured it out today. And maybe some of them will say, yeah, I like your point of view. I want to do it that way too. I want to get out of this stupid room. I'm tired of being murdered and murdering other people, whether it's in this life or other lives. I want off the karmic wheel. I want to turn it over to God, you see. And I want to say, God, I love you. And I know you love me. Because if you didn't love me, I would never have figured this out. You had to clunk me over the head, and maybe I didn't even commit the murder that I'm in jail for. Maybe I just got fingered because I'm Black or Hispanic or can't pronounce my name because I got hit on the head when I was a little boy. And they are picking on me, but I don't care because the only one that can pick me is God, you see. The only one that can pick me up and set me on my feet is God. The only one that can pull my strings is God. Other people can't pull them, but I can pull on my string and try to bring God to hell with me. But I'm not going to do that anymore because I figured it out. Figured it out. Thank you, God, for pulling my string and putting me in prison here. So I had time to think about it. And you put me in exactly the place I need to be to help others see that we don't always have to stay on the same trajectory. You see? Any thoughts on that? Or other questions, either generated from the discussions or something else?
I just wanted to thank Angela for speaking up. That was so beautiful and so moving to me. So thank you for sharing.
It was beautiful. Angela's gone through a lot to get where she is. So, anybody else? We've got a little time to finish up questions or thoughts.
I was just thinking of the communities. Before I found Steph, I've listened to a lot of different people, and some of them they speak like Steph. They say what Steph is saying. And so I'm wondering, are there gonna be like many small communities around, or is everybody gonna finally come together at some point?
The process of evolution is varied. It can be fast at some points and seem to be very slow at others. It depends upon the individual, you see. And so one of the things you need to understand about Steph and her relationship with me and others is that she does not care to be the leader, you see. She's just here to be the spokesperson who will help others to make their own connections, you see. So she's just part of the community. And her value to the community is just the value of her unique contribution, just the same as for every one of you. Your value is your unique contribution. So when you speak up and you talk about your experience, you're contributing. You see? And so we're going to give you a little point of view that might help you. So when you talk, as the small group did last night and you do today, you start the energy flowing. And the energy flows through you, you see, because it flows through my fingertips. And I say, wow, this is pretty nice today because I've got all this energy coming up from this person and it's flowing through my fingertips, and my fingertips are pulling the strings for the next person, you see? So think of it like a helicopter. And the blades begin to whir, and eventually it gets enough energy to lift up into the air, right? But one blade would be very, very difficult to lift that heavy helicopter up into the air, you see? So we need lots of blades that are whirling and stirring up the energy and causing the entire group to be elevated, you see, into a higher vibration. Because when you come into a higher vibration, you will sail right over all the sewage down there. And by sewage, I just mean all the failure to understand your own responsibility and to be a victim, you see, and try to force others to be their victims or victimizers, etc. On and on and on. The karmic rotation on the earth, you see. And so if those people can unite with others and get enough energy moving, this is the lesson of the loaves and fishes, then they can lift up off the ground in their group, you see, and they will be able to fly to a higher location, you see, where they will feel more free. We have used other descriptions of the butterfly, etc., but it is the time when you have to join together in a group. You can't do it on your own. And this was the problem that Jesus faced 2,000 years ago. He couldn't do it on his own unless he could make people own their own part in the play. They had to come to say, we're doing this together, Jesus. It's not all on your shoulders. But when they said, we're going to crucify you today, how many stood up beside him to say, you have to take me too, because we're one. We're one in the way we trust on each other. We're one in the way that we've come to see that it's time to trust on God energy that flows through all of us, and that we have to work together if we're going to get this thing up in the air. And so I cannot speak to you today about how others play, because that's up to them. You see how they will understand this. All I can say is that I'm here today with people who are getting this. I'm here with a group that is becoming a model for a new reality, because this is about you, you see. It's about me and you and what you see and hear. And if you go to another and you say, hey, you sound a lot like Steph today in the way that you translate what I say, I'd like to play with you today. And they say, okay, well, I'm the leader and you have to follow me and do what I tell you to, then they might not be ready to ascend, you see, because they think they have to save humanity. You can't save humanity unless you're so humble that you can be egoless. So you brought up the question about the ego earlier, Angela, and the ego is not God's umbrella, you see. It is the umbrella for those people who want to hide from me. I don't have an ego because I don't hide from myself, you see, because I know who I am. I am the God of the universe, and you are my beloved child. And when you can accept that and come back to me, we will have to learn to accept the fact that every single person on the face of the earth is beloved to me. Every one of them is beloved to me. So will they all come to live in peace and harmony? I will tell you that they will eventually. However, it always begins with you see. And so for those who say, if not me, then who? Are the ones who gather together today and say, if not me, then who? If not me, willing to give up my ego and trust on God today and be willing to live in a community where we will all be equal, you see, and we'll all trust on listening to each other and accepting the different points of view because we want to be whole, you see, we want to be holy. When we are holy, we give up our ego and we enter into the experience of being one. And we also experience being one of many, you see. We have to accept both, you see. You have to accept your unique relationship with me, and you have to accept the fact that I have a unique relationship with every one of you. And that I gave to you, each, the ability to see reality and to hear reality, but you have to share it, you see. So when you share with me and you share with each other, you are creating a shared reality, one where you all can get the same point of view because you talk about it and you pick it apart with me, and I help you see how beautiful it can be when we all just trust on the play-by-play experience of the game of love, you see. We just take it moment by moment, day by day, and we say, hey, that person made a choice. Now the ball's in my court, and I'll make a choice. And I'll hit the ball into somebody else's court, and they'll make a choice. And what a fun game it is to play, is it not? Other thoughts? I want you to understand that you are playing with me. I'm not dictating to you your moves. Do you understand this? I can see through your eyes and hear through your ears when you open them up to me. But when you close them off to me, I cannot. I just see a dark cloud. And I say, well, those people, although I love them, do not know me. They don't know me. They don't know that I'm not here to dictate reality. I'm here to play ball with them. I'm here to hit the ball into your court, and you can say, hey, which way am I going to hit the ball today? Am I going to have this vaccination or am I not? Because I know that everything I do will affect the energy of all, you see. And somebody else may bat the ball back at me. And then I'll say, I better hurry and catch that ball and not let it fall. Because when the ball falls, it's time to say, the game is over today. The game is over today. So talk to each other, share with each other, because that keeps the ball in play, you see. Okay, we'll end on that, I think. And thank you all for being here, and for those who have tuned in to listen to this wonderful group. I'm going to share them all to you. And thank you all for being here today. Anyone else have anything to say before we terminate for today? Not that we terminate ourselves, but that we end the session.
If anyone's seeing how wonderful this was for us, please give this video a thumbs up, and like and subscribe if you'd like to hear more from Heaven's Side. It's an amazing journey we're on, and we'd love to have you join us.
Thank you, Jim. And thank all of you, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.